This is not normal behavior. Him act like a jackass.
Shannon Sharp has been dragging AB for years, first slamming his antics, then labeling him a clown.
Maybe he's a clown, and he's been a clown for the longest.
Now with AB filing for bankruptcy, Sharp is pulling back the curtain on his financial collapse, delivering his harshest, most unfiltered takedown yet. Let me break it down. Shannon Sharp exposes Antonio Brown. In May 2024, Antonio Brown filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the U.S. Bankruptcy Court for the Southern District of Florida, claiming to have assets worth $50,000 or less while owing nearly $3 million to 8 creditors. Think about that for a moment. From $100 million in career earnings to claiming he has less than $50,000 to his name. That's not just financial mismanagement, that's financial obliteration. But here's where the story gets even more wild. On One Night with Steiny podcast in February 2025, Antonio Brown came clean about his financial devastation in the most shocking way possible.
I think I made $100 million if you count off the field, everything.
100 million,
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
How much did you spend of that 100 million?
Well, I just filed Chapter 11 bankrupt. You know what I mean? So
did we go
I
through?
spent all of it. I blew all my
Spent
money.
it all?
Yeah, I blew everything.
Did you hear that? I blew all my money. I blew everything. Those are Antonio Brown's own words, admitting to squandering what most people couldn't earn in multiple lifetimes. But it gets worse. AB tried to explain where all that money went, and his explanation is almost as shocking as the admission itself. So now he's blaming his financial advisors and saying the money was put into family trusts that he no longer controls. But wait, there's more to this story that Shannon Sharp and others in the media have been trying to tell us for years. This wasn't just bad financial advice. This was a pattern of destructive behavior that anyone paying attention could see coming from miles away. Shannon Sharp, who has never been one to mince words, has been calling out Antonio Brown's behavior since 2017. And looking back now, his warnings seem prophetic. The man literally predicted AB's downfall years before it happened, and he did it by simply observing the pattern of behavior that Brown was exhibiting. But before we dive deeper into Shannon's predictions and AB's responses, let's understand just how catastrophic this bankruptcy really is. The case was initially filed as Chapter 11, which allows for reorganization of finances while protecting assets from creditors, but things went sideways fast. The case was later converted to a Chapter 7 trustee-supervised liquidation proceeding due to allegations of bad faith and lack of financial transparency. What does that mean in plain English? It means the bankruptcy court didn't believe Antonio Brown was being honest about his finances. They suspected he was hiding assets and not being transparent about his true financial situation, and they were right to be suspicious. The bankruptcy trustee accused Brown of concealing assets and failing to provide transparent financial records, with over $195,000 in income and expenses unaccounted for. The trustee found that his records were too vague to verify, and there were concerns that his bankruptcy case could be dismissed if these issues weren't addressed. But here's where it gets really interesting. Brown owns 3 Florida properties in Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, and Odessa, valued at over $10 million collectively, including a $3.8 million Odessa home and a $2.1 million Tampa home. These properties were transferred to the Antonio El Ala Express Trust Enterprise for $10 each in 2023, raising massive red flags about potential asset protection maneuvers. Let me break this down for you. Antonio Brown transferred properties worth over $10 million to a trust for $10 each, just months before filing for bankruptcy. If that doesn't scream, I'm trying to hide my assets, I don't know what does. And it gets even more bizarre. His attorney later revealed these properties were uninsured, prompting a trustee motion for sanctions up to $2,500 daily. So here we have a man claiming to be broke while secretly controlling millions in real estate, and he can't even be bothered to insure these properties. This is the level of financial recklessness we're dealing with here. Now let's talk about where all this money actually went, because the debts tell a story of their own. The biggest single debt is a $1.2 million judgment to Anton Tamanov, a moving truck driver who sued Brown for assault and battery stemming from a January 2020 incident. Brown failed to attend court hearings, resulting in the judgment. And here's the kicker. In October 2024, the bankruptcy court ruled this debt non-dischargeable under Section 523 of the Bankruptcy Code, citing the willful and malicious nature of the assault, meaning Brown cannot eliminate this debt through bankruptcy. Then there's a $2 million debt to KCB Marketing for unpaid commissions on marketing deals, hundreds of thousands in credit card debt, $28,589 to Avanti Solutions for unpaid work related to his appearance at the 2023 Rolling Loud concert, and even $296 to a South Florida plumber. The man couldn't even pay his plumber. But perhaps the most telling aspect of this entire financial collapse is how Antonio Brown has responded to it publicly. Instead of taking responsibility, he's tried to spin it as some kind of strategic business move. On the Pivot podcast in June 2024, he had the audacity to say,
I mean, I'm f***ed up. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't say that, I just can't comply with debt. It's all about protecting yourself. But yeah, I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not broke, but I'm fractured.
I'm not broke, but I'm fractured. Ladies and gentlemen, that might be the most delusional financial statement in the history of professional sports. This is a man who just admitted to blowing $100 million trying to convince us that filing for bankruptcy is somehow a strategic move. And throughout all of this financial chaos, one voice has been consistently calling out Antonio Brown's behavior, Shannon Sharp. While others were making excuses for AB or trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, Shannon was seeing the writing on the wall and warning everyone who would listen. This financial disaster didn't happen overnight. It was the result of years of poor decisions, legal troubles, and increasingly erratic behavior that Shannon Sharp and others tried to warn us about. But nobody wanted to listen because Antonio Brown was too talented, too entertaining, and frankly, too good at football for people to take these warnings seriously. But Shannon Sharp wasn't just making wild predictions. He was observing a pattern. And that pattern led exactly where he said it would, to complete financial and personal destruction. Let's look into Shannon's years-long crusade to expose Antonio Brown's behavior, the numerous controversies that Shannon predicted would destroy AB's career and finances, and how Antonio Brown's responses to Shannon's criticism only proved that Shannon was right all along. Shannon Sharp's years of calling out AB's destructive path. If there's one person in the sports media world who deserves credit for seeing Antonio Brown's complete downfall coming from miles away, it's Shannon Sharp. While the rest of the sports world was still mesmerized by AB's incredible talent and highlight reel catches, Shannon was looking beyond the football field and seeing the character flaws that would eventually destroy everything. What we're witnessing now with AB's bankruptcy and legal troubles isn't a sudden collapse. It's the inevitable conclusion of a pattern that Shannon Sharp identified and called out consistently for over 7 years. Let's take a journey through Shannon's prescient warnings, starting way back in February 2017, when most people still saw Antonio Brown as just an eccentric superstar rather than a ticking time bomb. Shannon criticized Brown on Undisputed for his behavior following a Facebook Live video Brown posted from the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room after a game. Shannon called out Brown for unprofessional conduct, emphasizing that such actions were inappropriate for an NFL player. But here's what makes Shannon's early warnings so remarkable. He wasn't just criticizing individual incidents. He was identifying a pattern of behavior that would eventually lead to AB's complete destruction.
I say, Steelers, you need to move on because it's only going to get worse from here.
You said it.
You did.
Oh!
And they moved right on with a whole new
whole-
contract.
Think about that for a moment. In 2017, Shannon Sharp was already predicting that Antonio Brown's behavior would get worse, not better. And what happened? The Steelers ignored the warning signs and gave AB a massive contract extension. Shannon saw this decision as a huge mistake, and he was absolutely right. Shannon's ability to see the big picture became even more evident as AB's behavior escalated.
It took that post for you to realize AB was like this. You've been with the guy for 2 years. It took you 2 years to realize what I knew from a distance 6 years ago.
This wasn't luck or coincidence. Shannon was reading the character traits that others either ignored or excused because of AB's talent. He was seeing the entitled attitude, the lack of accountability, and the inability to handle any form of criticism or resistance that would eventually make AB unemployable in professional football. Fast forward to 2019, and Shannon's predictions started coming true in spectacular fashion. After Brown was released by the New England Patriots following assault allegations and erratic behavior with the Oakland Raiders, Shannon's analysis was devastating. PPL gave AB far too much credit for being that smart. A smart person would have behaved in Oakland and collected 30 mil, not act a damn fool. Loser. Shannon was absolutely right. AB's problems weren't caused by bad luck or other people. They were self-inflicted wounds caused by consistently poor decision-making. And Shannon wasn't afraid to say it, even when it made him unpopular with AB's fans. But Antonio Brown didn't take these criticisms lying down. His responses to Shannon's warnings only proved Shannon's point about AB's lack of judgment and professionalism. Brown fired back on Twitter, referencing 2010's assault allegations against Sharp. No charges were filed, and Sharp clarified the accuser was a stalker. Instead of addressing Shannon's legitimate concerns about his behavior, AB chose to attack Shannon personally with unfounded allegations. Shannon's response was masterful. He posted a video of Brown's Raiders release and questioned the 1.9 million people who initially applauded Brown's behavior, urging Brown to be humble and careful with his fame. Shannon wasn't just criticizing. He was trying to help AB see where his path was leading. The pattern continued throughout 2020 and 2021, with Shannon consistently calling out AB's increasingly erratic behavior. When Brown returned from a 3-game suspension for submitting a fake COVID-19 vaccination card to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Shannon's reaction was swift and accurate.
AB, if you get something, pay for it.
This seemingly simple statement about paying the chef actually revealed Shannon's understanding of a much deeper problem: AB's pattern of not paying people for services rendered. This wasn't just about one chef, it was about a character flaw that would eventually lead to millions in unpaid debt threats and legal judgments. But perhaps Shannon's most prophetic moment came after Antonio Brown's now infamous sideline meltdown against the New York Jets on January 2nd, 2022.
It doesn't change a whole lot, Skip, because it doesn't change what transpired after the fact. And let me tell you something how it's worked, Skip.
Shannon saw this moment not as an isolated incident, but as the inevitable result of years of enabling and making excuses for inexcusable behavior. Shannon argued that Brown's behavior was consistent with his history of controversies, and that his exit was unjustifiable, even if Brown's claims about being forced to play through an injury were true. But Shannon didn't stop there. He went deeper, suggesting that Brown's actions were motivated by financial incentives rather than injury concerns. He emphasized that Brown had lost the benefit of the doubt due to his pattern of behavior, and he suggested that AB's outburst was really about not getting enough targets to meet contract incentives. This financial angle that Shannon identified in 2022 now looks incredibly prescient in light of AB's 2024 bankruptcy filing. Shannon was seeing the financial pressures and poor decision-making that would eventually lead to AB's complete financial collapse. Throughout this period, Shannon also made a controversial but important point about accountability. Shannon sparked controversy on Undisputed by claiming that some fans and media were giving Brown a pass for his behavior because he is black. Shannon stated, "A lot of people are giving him a pass because he's black. Let's be all the way real. This wasn't Shannon being divisive. This was Shannon calling out the soft bigotry of lowered expectations." He was arguing that holding AB accountable for his actions wasn't racist. Giving him a pass because of his race was the real problem.
I'm gonna take the T and the Y off of this. He wants to control the narrative.
Shannon was telling us that AB's refusal to conform to basic professional standards would eventually catch up with him. He predicted that the NFL and society wouldn't tolerate this behavior indefinitely. And now we see the final result. AB isn't just out of the NFL, he's bankrupt and facing serious legal trouble.
That they that you're talking about in this tweet is you. That's who they is.
Shannon was breaking down AB's victim mentality and forcing him to take responsibility for his own actions. Every time AB blamed they for his problems, Shannon pointed out that AB was the common denominator in all his failures. The financial implications of AB's behavior weren't lost on Shannon either. By October 2022, Shannon expressed exasperation with Brown's ongoing controversies, stating on Undisputed, "You think a guy's hit rock bottom, but it seems that he has no bottom. I think over the last 3 or 4 years, he's shown that he can't be trusted." Shannon had given up hope for Brown's redemption, and looking back now, you can see why. Every intervention, every piece of advice, every warning was met with more erratic behavior and personal attacks. But perhaps the most telling moment came when Shannon used Brown as a cautionary example for other players. In October 2024, on his Nightcap podcast, Sharp used Brown as a warning to Aaron Rodgers about alienating teams, stating, "Go back and look at Antonio Brown's situation in Pittsburgh. They will tolerate you until they can replace you." Shannon was using AB's career destruction as a teaching moment for other players, showing them exactly how talent alone isn't enough if you can't control your behavior and make good decisions. Throughout all of this, Shannon's criticisms have remained remarkably consistent. He has always focused on Brown's self-inflicted controversies, lack of professionalism, and inability to take accountability. He frequently highlighted Brown's pattern of behavior across teams and incidents, always bringing it back to the same core message. Actions have consequences, and AB's actions were leading him toward destruction. Looking back now, Shannon's warnings seem almost supernatural in their accuracy. Every prediction he made came true. Every pattern he identified played out exactly as he said it would. And every time AB attacked Shannon instead of listening to his advice, he proved Shannon's point about his lack of judgment and inability to learn from his mistakes. Let's look at AB's recent legal troubles, including his current status as a wanted man, and how all of this vindicates everything Shannon Sharp has been saying for years. We'll also look at the broader lessons about accountability, financial responsibility, and what happens when talent isn't paired with wisdom. Legal troubles, attempted murder charges, and Shannon's ultimate vindication. If you thought Antonio Brown's bankruptcy filing was the rock bottom of his spectacular fall from grace, hold on to your seats because we're about to dive into the most shocking chapter yet. What we're about to discuss makes everything Shannon Sharp warned us about look like child's play. We're talking about attempted murder charges, international fugitive status, and a level of self-destruction that even Shannon Sharp's most dire predictions couldn't have fully anticipated. On May 16, 2025, Antonio Brown crossed a line that transformed him from a troubled former athlete into an alleged violent criminal. Outside a celebrity boxing event hosted by social media influencer Aiden Ross in Miami's Little Haiti neighborhood, Brown was involved in a violent altercation that resulted in him allegedly firing 2 shots at a man named Zulkarnain Kwame Nantambu. According to the arrest warrant issued on June 11, 2025, Brown allegedly punched Nantambu, sparking a physical altercation. After the fight was broken up by an off-duty Florida Highway Patrol officer, Brown reportedly grabbed a handgun from a security staffer and fired 2 shots at Nantambu, with 1 bullet grazing Nantambu's next. Let me say that again. Antonio Brown, the same man Shannon Sharp has been warning us about for years, allegedly tried to murder someone over what appears to be a dispute about stolen jewelry. This isn't a social media controversy or a contract dispute. This is attempted murder with a firearm, a first-degree felony carrying a potential 15-year prison sentence and a $10,000 fine. Surveillance and cell phone footage allegedly captured Brown initiating the altercation, striking Nantambu and firing the shots. The evidence seems overwhelming, with 2 spent shell casings and a damaged right-handed holster recovered at the scene. But here's where AB's response to this situation perfectly encapsulates everything Shannon Sharp has been saying about his character and judgment. Instead of taking responsibility or showing remorse, Brown claimed on social media and during a live stream that he was jumped by multiple individuals attempting to steal his jewelry. He stated he was detained briefly by police, but released after giving his side of the story, denying any arrest that night. And then, and this is where you'll see Shannon Sharp was right about everything, Brown referenced chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, saying, "I got CTE, I blacked out," as a possible explanation for his actions. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly the kind of excuse-making and refusal to take accountability that Shannon Sharp has been calling out for years. AB is literally using CTE, a serious medical condition that affects many former athletes, as an excuse for allegedly trying to murder someone. This is peak Antonio Brown. Take a serious issue, exploit it for personal benefit, and avoid any real accountability. But the story gets even wilder. As of July 16th, 2025, Brown has not turned himself in and is reportedly traveling in the Middle East, possibly Dubai, based on social media posts showing him in locations with Arabic signage. So not only is AB facing attempted murder charges, he's now apparently fleeing the country to avoid prosecution. Miami police have not labeled him a fugitive, and authorities have not actively pursued him, but let's call this what it is. Antonio Brown is running from attempted murder charges. This is the same man who once caught touchdown passes in the Super Bowl, now hiding in Dubai to avoid facing justice for allegedly trying to kill someone. And if you think this shooting incident is an isolated event, think again. AB's legal troubles have been mounting for years, creating a pattern that perfectly validates everything Shannon Sharp has been saying about his character and decision-making. Let's go back to 2020, when Brown was charged with felony burglary with battery, misdemeanor battery, and criminal mischief, after allegedly throwing rocks at a moving truck driver and threatening him over a delivery dispute. This is the same Anton Tumanov, who now has that $1.2 million judgment against AB that we discussed earlier. Then there was the November 2022 incident where an arrest warrant was issued after Brown allegedly threw a shoe at his ex-fiancée during an argument and attempted to lock her out of a Tampa home. The warrant was later recalled, but the pattern of alleged violence was already clear. In October 2023, Brown was arrested for failing to pay child support, adding financial irresponsibility to his growing list of legal troubles. And let's not forget his brief ownership of the Albany Empire Arena football team, where Brown was accused of threatening 3 players with a gun. The team faced turmoil, including missed payments and suspensions, leading to its termination from the National Arena League in June 2023. This is the pattern Shannon Sharp saw coming years ago: violence, financial irresponsibility, threats, and a complete inability to function in civilized society. Shannon wasn't just criticizing AB's social media antics or his attitude toward coaches. He was seeing the signs of someone capable of real violence and real harm. Looking back at Shannon's warnings now,
Skip, look, I'm off and I understand you're supposed to support, but wrong is wrong, right is right. And what he's doing is wrong.
they seem almost prophetic. Shannon was calling for accountability when others were making excuses. He was demanding that people stop enabling AB's behavior when others were giving him pass after pass. And he was predicting that this path would lead to serious consequences when others thought it was just harmless eccentricity. But perhaps the most telling aspect of this entire situation is how AB's current legal troubles tie directly back to his financial collapse. Remember that dispute with Zulkarnain Kwame Nantambu that led to the shooting? According to Nantambu, the conflict stemmed from a years-long dispute originating in Dubai over stolen jewelry, for which Nantambu says a judge ruled in his favor. So AB's financial desperation and legal troubles created a situation that escalated to alleged attempted murder. This isn't coincidence. This is the inevitable result of the pattern Shannon Sharp identified years ago. And even now, facing attempted murder charges and living as an international fugitive, Antonio Brown still can't help himself when it comes to creating more controversy. Around the same time as the shooting incident, Brown posted inflammatory claims on social media alleging he had a relationship with California Governor Gavin Newsom's wife, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, without providing evidence. This is exactly what Shannon Sharp meant when he talked about AB's inability to help himself. Even facing 15 years in prison for attempted murder, AB is still posting wild, unsubstantiated claims on social media that only hurt his already destroyed reputation and legal position. The contrast between Shannon Sharp's consistent professional criticism and Antonio Brown's increasingly erratic responses has never been more stark. While Shannon was trying to help AB see the consequences of his actions, AB was attacking Shannon personally and spiraling deeper into destructive behavior. The financial aspect of AB's downfall also perfectly validates Shannon's warnings. Remember when Shannon talked about AB's pattern of not paying people and creating financial problems? Well, the shooting incident victim Nantambu mentioned that seeing AB triggered memories of AB's financial failures. AB's financial irresponsibility literally created the conditions that led to him allegedly trying to murder someone. And throughout all of this chaos, Shannon Sharp's message has remained consistent. Actions have consequences, and talent doesn't excuse behavior.
Maybe he's a clown, and he's been a clown for the longest. He's done in the NFL. Nobody's gonna waste their time. That man took your ass in. That man revived your career. Nobody was gonna give you a chance. And you take a shot at this man's wife. You do that, AB? I fought you at home.
Shannon's frustration and vindication are both evident here. He spent years trying to warn people about Antonio Brown's character, only to be attacked and ridiculed for it. Now, with AB facing attempted murder charges and living as a fugitive, Shannon's warnings look absolutely prophetic. But Shannon's vindication goes beyond just being right about AB's trajectory. His consistent message about accountability, professionalism, and the consequences of bad decisions has proven to be exactly what Antonio Brown needed to hear, and exactly what he refused to listen to. Think about this. If Antonio Brown had listened to Shannon Sharp's advice back in 2017, where would he be today? If he had taken Shannon's warnings about professionalism seriously, if he had addressed his behavioral issues, if he had managed his finances responsibly, if he had surrounded himself with people who held him accountable instead of yes men who enabled his worst instincts, he could still be playing in the NFL, earning millions of dollars, and living as a respected athlete instead of a wanted fugitive. But instead of listening to Shannon's constructive criticism, AB chose to attack Shannon personally, dismiss his warnings, and continue down a path of self-destruction that has led to complete financial ruin and serious criminal charges. Like this video? Click on the card showing on your screen for more.